Hello, welcome to Geeks Unleashed. This is episode 77. As usual, I'm Mark.
And I'm Jasmine.
And this week we are joined by Verno from the Cerebros Podcast. Welcome, Verno.
Thank you guys so much for having me back, man. I'm stoked to be talking about Y the Last Man with you.
Oh, no worries. We're stoked that you're here.
Yeah, seriously. And spoiler warning, this is a review show. So if you have not had a chance to watch the first season of Y the Last Man on FX on Hulu, you might want to pause this and come back later. If there is a later, Disney Plus in the UK. There you go. Did not know that. Also, before we get started, if you are on YouTube, please remember to like and subscribe to this video. Let us know what you thought about Y the Last Man in the comments. And if you're listening to this podcast, please remember to subscribe and leave us a review on Apple or Podchaser.
5 stars only. Anyway, Verno, before we kick off, you were with us a few weeks ago for our finale of Horror Fest, Fear Street. So hopefully we won't take up as long as your evening as we did with Fear Street this time around. So,
we had a lot to cover then, for sure.
Yeah. The Fear Street trilogy.
Although I'm not sure that this was too much of an upgrade, but I guess I'll save that for later.
Don't know what to say now. Anyway, maybe we'll just stop talking about that. And so let's before we jump into anything, Spider-Man No Way Home trailer dropped the other day. Annoyingly for me, it dropped while I was asleep. So when I woke up, I had to make sure I didn't click on any social media apps, and I just went and watched the trailer straight away. I really enjoyed it. I was disappointed with no Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. I was hoping they might even.
They're not going to put them in the trailer.
No, but I hope there might be like some sort of tease, like you see, like I don't know, like a foot or something. Like,
I read somewhere someone was like, wouldn't it be sweet if Andrew Garfield swooped in and saved MJ because he couldn't save what's her face? How's her name? Gwen Stacy.
Oh, Gwen Stacy. Yeah. No, I want Tom Holland to be able to save his own girlfriend. Like,
right.
I don't know how I feel if that happened. Like, or I don't know. Anyway, what are your thoughts, Verno, on the trailer?
Well, first off, I'm not normally the type to even watch a trailer. Like, if me and my fiance, we go to the theater and a big
just
like
blind?
a movie we come in if I'm at a theater and a MCU trailer starts playing, I go, you know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah, we put our hoods over. I don't care. I don't want to see trailers. And I was actually right before I was talking to you earlier, Mark. My buddy was talking to me about doing something for this movie coming up. And he's like, man, I've watched that trailer 50 times. Like, I don't normally watch trailers. And I told him, I'm probably not going to watch it. I'm like, I'll probably just stay away from it. And then, like, not 2 minutes later, you're like, well, we're going to get into the trailer for Spider-Man. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm fucking watching it. So
if you'd have said to me, like, oh, look, I would have said, like, hey, we'll leave it. But
no, it's all good. I mean, it's impossible to avoid anyway. And I knew that's kind of the annoying thing about it. Like, I know what's coming. We all can assume at this point, if Andrew Garfield and
Tobey
Maguire, if they don't show up in this movie,
people are gonna riot.
It's a massive disappointment. So I didn't really mind that they weren't in this trailer. I guess I'm kind of happy to see the amount of Doctor Strange that we saw in the trailer. That's my big takeaway from it. I didn't want to see another, like, where he just comes in for a minute. He's like, okay, Thor, I've got fancy gloves now, and I'll show you, like, I'll help you out, and then I'm out of the movie. It seems like he's going to be a part of the movie in a larger role than just like, because he's got like a 7 movie contract or something big like that. Doctor Strange actor dude. I'm terrible with actors' names, by the way. I'll just throw that out there.
Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
I'm terrible with names too. So what's your name again?
Yeah. Vern Diggity. I'll give you my DJ name, but
no, let's not.
No, but I thought it was cool. I thought it was, I knew that we were going to get all these cameos and all that. So I thought what we saw in the trailer was awesome. I just hope that it doesn't take away too much from the viewing experience of the movie, because they tend to ruin. Imagine going into Thor, that Ragnarok movie, and not knowing that the Incredible Hulk was going to be in it. Like, you know what I mean? When that scene where he comes out, if you didn't know he was going to be in it, that would have been the best part of the movie. But it's like just a whatever part of the movie, because we saw it 100 times in the trailer ahead of time,
Yeah.
There was that Jim Carrey film where something Almighty, where he becomes God for a day or something.
Bruce Almighty.
Yeah, Bruce Almighty. Yeah, and like the trailer, literally I remember this. Every joke in the trailer was every joke in the film.
Right.
And I remember going to cinema and I was like, literally, I'm not even laughing because I've seen this trailer like 20 times. like not because I wanted to, just because it was like on normal TV and stuff. Like, so I think also on Netflix, I've noticed this when you're on the Netflix app, on the TV and stuff, like all the trailers for anything they have on there literally show you the whole film or the whole TV series. So I now I don't trust Netflix with trailers. They literally will like show you the plot twists and stuff like that. So I'm like you, but this thing was going to get ruined anyway. So I thought I'm just going to watch it on my own thing and not let somebody else tell me. But the one thing I did take away from this was, okay, so they introduced a lot more of the villains. We saw Sandman, we saw Scorpion, we saw Electro,
Lizard,
definitely Green Goblin. Lizard, not Scorpion, Lizard. And one of the things I did completely take away from this was that Doctor Strange said to Peter Parker was, all these villains die, and Peter Parker actually wants to save these villains. So I am interested to know what's going to happen. Is this a brilliant way of bringing all of these villains back? And is this Sony finally getting the Sinister Six movie that they've been wanting it for years? So will there be? I don't imagine they're going to go to all the effort of bringing these people back for one movie. I can't see that. That's my take.
Right.
And they're good villains. I mean, Willem Dafoe is one of the best sort of, movie villains going, I think.
I still quote his character from the first Spider-Man when that lab assistant is like, no, we got to take this back to formula. And he gets those crazy eyes and he's like, back to formula. Like, me and my friends quote that all the time.
Did we see his face or just heard his voice in the trailer?
Just heard his voice.
Right. Okay. I thought
his voice.
But they confirmed it. They said that he was like on set, all hooded up and stuff so that people wouldn't notice him. And one of my friends actually works with Thomas. What is his last name? The guy who plays Sandman.
I
can't remember.
I know him from Wings.
Oh yeah, but she was like, I thought there was something up with him because he'd been AWOL for so long. And she's like, well, maybe I said, well, if he was secretly in this film, like maybe Marvel did all of the PR for him instead of like him reaching out to his normal PR team to be like, hey guys, hook me up. I'm going to the set of Spider-Man. So
I'm wondering as well, like, because the things they didn't show, obviously they didn't show a lot. So like, is Vulture going to be in it? Is Venom going to be in it? I don't know. I still think they hid a lot from us, so I'm not too worried about the movie.
And will it be confined to just Spider-Man, rogues, and friends? Like, could we get X-Men in it? You know what I mean? Are they going to go into the other Marvel movies outside of the MCU?
Oh yeah.
Listen, if they put Blade in Eternals, who knows who they're going to throw in this Spider-Man film?
Yeah.
Right. So
because the in the trailer you see Doctor Strange and all the sky is going green or something, and Doctor Strange says, "Oh, they're all coming through." I mean, are they going to cheat and bring the mutants in that way? I don't know. We're all speculating now, but I mean, we got 5 weeks to go, man. It's gonna be a long 5 weeks. So, I mean, we've been joking on the podcast for ages about all these Spider-Man rumors and who's going to be in it. Like, me and Jasmine even thought at one point we were going to be in the movie. So.
I mean, I can neither confirm nor deny whether or not I'm in this film or not. Okay.
I do love it though when Andrew Garfield gets quizzed. He looks so guilty. Like he honestly, he was on one of those talk show things. He was on like a Skype thing or whatever, and he honestly. He's got a terrible poker face, or he's got the best poker face and he's not in the movie, and he literally it was laughing away, anyway, we'll leave it there, but I'm looking forward to the movie and I don't care if I watched it. And I mean, it pretty much confirmed a big chunk of the rumors that had been going around, so
I'm still holding out. I'm gonna say this every time. I'm holding out that post-credit, mid-credit, something, we get a tiny sliver of Miles Morales. That is literally all I want from this film.
I could see it for sure. And
I
kind
want
of what
some,
you said.
yeah, like
I
just
could see a post credit, especially. Yeah, I could see it. They mentioned him in the first MCU Spider-Man film.
Yes.
Like his uncle is confirmed.
His uncle is in it.
Yes.
Yeah, and they confirmed that the nephew exists. So
Yeah.
for sure, yeah, I hope we see
come
him
on,
too.
and like just like Peter's walking down the street after everything is over, and then we don't even have to see like a whole body, but like if we could see a kid wearing some like J's, I'd be like, oh my god, that's Miles Morales' foot, I swear.
What I have been wondering was like if they were to end this movie with that potentially Tom Holland's Peter Parker is dead from the perception of the MCU, but maybe Tom Holland's Spider-Man wakes up in whatever world like Venom and stuff came from. So then Sony will go and do their own thing with Tom Holland. Like that's kind of what I'd been wondering. Like if
I hope not.
Like
I don't think anybody wants that.
No,
I don't think anybody wants Sony to get their hands on Tom Holland.
Well, no, they don't. But I just remember Kevin Feige saying Spider-Man is the only character that has the ability to go between two universes. That was part of their deal they did with Sony. I remember Kevin Feige saying something along those lines, which made me wonder, eventually, is Sony just going to take him back now that they've had 3 lucrative movies and hope that fans will just follow and watch the garbage that they put out? So,
or what if they don't introduce like mutants specifically, but what if like we get a Sentinel, like some kind of indication that that's the route that we're going next?
Well, wasn't there rumors like a long time ago that Patrick Stewart was supposed to be in this movie, or he was in talks to be in it? I would love that. Like, I don't want this to be the way that they introduce the mutants that are going to be going forward. I would just like it to be contained in this movie. Like, let's see Patrick Stewart, Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, like just, Halle Berry, just a glimpse at these people, but not have it be reintroducing them into the MCU.
I think that would be cool if it was like an end credits thing, not part of the main movie. Like, the titles have all gone up and then we get like a 2-minute, I don't know, thing where, like you say, they just suddenly, or something happens. I don't know.
I could see like a montage in the middle of the movie where you're like, oh god, you're seeing all these glimpses of all these different universes.
Exactly. But you're not in them. It's like all of those rifts that are opening. Like, what if you can just peek through the rift and it's like a rift opens up at the Professor X's school, and you're like in a classroom, and Halle Berry is teaching all the mutants, and they're like, what the fuck? What is this opening up in the ceiling? Yeah,
a montage would be cool, but like you say, that doesn't take away from the movie, like by introducing that all of a sudden the mutants. But if you just have it for maybe a 2 or 3 minute montage where, like, let's say the sky is falling, and that would be cool. Like, I could get on board that. Anyway, let's leave the speculation there, and because I think no matter what we do, that movie will probably never live up to what fans want it to be. Like, anyway, it'd be good to talk to you, Verno, find out a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, let's get him on the hot seat.
Yeah, so obviously the first time we came on, it was with 2 other guests, and it was a lot to cover, so we didn't get to grill you like we normally grill our guests on the first occasion. So what I always start with is pretty much our opening question. What's your secret origin? So what I mean by that is, how did you discover comics and pop culture, and what got you in on the ground?
It's weird because, like, obviously there's like 2 phases, maybe like 3 or 4 phases of my pop culture nerdiness, but really it was like when I was a kid, it was the same as most 37-year-old men. It was the X-Men, the animated series, Batman, the animated series, all of those things. And I used to read X-Men comics back in the day. I was like obsessed with them and obsessed with the show. And then, another just similar thing that you hear from a lot of people, high school happened, partying, life happened. And I kind of fell out of the pop culture game for a long time. I would just, watch movies and stuff like that. But then I started reading, like, picking up trades here and there, like Batman trades a lot. I was kind of doing like your greatest hits, Batman Year One, just stuff like that. But the real thing that like got me to where I am right now, hosting a comic book podcast, is the Force Awakens movie. Honestly, that
really
the trailer for that came out. And I'd never really been into Star Wars. And I was like, I want to get into this. I want to catch up on that and be a part of, the new movie when it comes out. And that started like a crazy obsession with Star Wars. And that's really where it began for me. And the real big thing, I got them right here. this Funko Pop changed my life. Right here. It was one of these. I got this Funko Pop. I'd never been a toy collector at all. And then I needed to get more toys. And then like, well, I can't be a poser. I need to have my nerd knowledge back up my toy collection. And those two things started fueling each other. I was just buying Star Wars pops. Then I'm like, that Iron Man pop looks pretty cool. So then I had to start watching the movies. So I wasn't a poser. That really is what it is. Eventually, after years of that, I got more obsessed with the actual stories and the comics and the movies than I was the toys. Like I don't really collect toys that much anymore. I more collect hardcover comic books and stuff like that. So it was really Star Wars. It was like my gateway drug into
get your gateway
culture.
drug into pop culture.
Right. Which is, I'm sure that's not a rare story. And the other big thing that kind of really sent me down like the comic book path was my first X-Men omnibus, like the old Claremont, the introduction to Wolverine and Storm and Colossus and Nightcrawler and all those characters like from the 70s, knowing that you could just pick up this one book and read all the origins to those characters. Like I didn't know that existed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that reading that and enjoying that so much really got me into like comics the way I am today for sure. And that was only like a few years ago, like 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, well, judging by the stuff behind you, you've come a long way.
Right. Yeah, I've slowed down on all this craziness for sure, like big time. I look back on it, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? You know what I mean? Like I was out of control. For real.
I mean, those things individually are like $100 or something like that. So yeah,
I wish,
if not more, like
a lot more.
Like,
they're like $250 a piece. But the cool thing about them is I've sold. Well, the big thing is sideshow.com. They allow payment plans. I swear, like that's the big thing is you can just chip away at them. But they hold their value.
Yeah.
For those just listening on the podcast, what I have behind me are like 1/6 scale hot toy collectibles. But like I can't tell you how many I've got for like $200 to $250 that I sold for like $400 to $500. Like they really, they can go up in value and they don't usually go down in value too much, though they do for sure. But you can get your money back on them. You can have them for a while and then sell them, and it's like you rented them for low amounts of money.
I've heard that about figures and collectibles, that they are not for children at all. They are like purely an adult's game. So I'll be honest, I've not made a jump into those type of things. That I look at them, and every time I go into Forbidden Planet in London, I'm like, oh, I'd love to get them. But I just like the thing is, I can imagine it. Once you get one, you want to get more than one. Mm-hmm. It's probably like getting tattoos, I imagine. So
it depends on how OCD you are. Like if you get Darth Vader, do you need a stormtrooper with him? Turns out I do.
Yes, you do. Is the answer.
Yeah.
Okay, quick question about pops. Like bobblehead or non-bobblehead? Do you have a preference?
Oh, well, what they do, or what I mostly collected Star Wars and Marvel, and the Star Wars are all bobbleheads.
All the Marvel ones I have are bobbleheads, and I hate them.
Oh, they are? Maybe I'm thinking of something different. There was certain ones that aren't bobbleheads, but I would always take this one. So I didn't really collect. I sold like a whole room full of pops a few years ago, and I bought a good chunk of this collection behind me.
Nice.
But I would always take and jam like paper towels in there so that they didn't bobble. I can't even really remember the reason why I did that now. I would think it was just so that they would be sitting the way that I wanted them to be. But the other question is to leave them in the box or open them. And I opened them all. I'd always take them out of the box.
I'm half and half. Half of mine are out of the box and the other half aren't. So
right.
Well, actually, anything that is not a bobblehead is out of the box. All the bobbleheads are still in the box.
That's interesting.
On your podcast, you talk about your local comic shop, and I just sort of wonder about the industry, the comic community in Illinois. So obviously it's where you are. Like, do you get involved in it much, or is it literally just going to the comic shop, picking them up and leaving?
I mean, my comic shop, there's not like a lot of people there. You know what I mean? No, there's like almost never any people there. It's usually just me. So I mean, I go in there.
Does he close it just for you? Is it like royalty? It's arrived?
No, he opens at like 2 p.m. He opens at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. So I sit around and I wait to go get the books. I don't know why he waits so long to open, but I don't know. I'll just go ahead and say he hooks me up with the Marvel books a day early. So I'm super appreciative of that. But it is kind of a disappointing thing that there's not really like like people hanging out in there talking about comics. We do a little bit, like the owner, Steve, and maybe there's another guy in there helping him that we'll chat a little bit. But for me, for the most part, for what I do, or because of what I do, where I pick up 10 to 15 to 17 books on Tuesday, I go home, I read them all, then I do the reviews that night. I edit it and I put it up that night. I don't have time to sit and talk with them. I'm not trying to talk with them. I gotta go. I got a long
I got
day.
shit to do, man.
Right.
I mean, that's quite a nice segue into actually talking about your podcast. So I know originally when you started the podcast, you were just X-Men. I'd just love to hear about really your origin. How did you get into starting podcasts? And obviously you had a love for X-Men, but yeah, you tell us.
It's funny, like I was enjoying a lot of podcasts, just like popular podcasts, like a lot of people. And me and a friend of mine, really, there's a podcast called The Danger Room. And
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's an X-Men podcast. They started forever ago, and they started at X-Men number 1, 1963, and they just do episode or issue by issue, panel by panel, page by page, just going through and talking about it. And I was enjoying that. I was reading through the Claremont era and enjoying that. And I was talking to my buddy. All we were doing is talking about House of X constantly. House of X, Powers of 10, the Jonathan Hickman X-Men miniseries. Excuse me. And I talked him into doing an episode with me on the way to another comic shop that we have that's like 45 minutes away. So the first episode that we ever did together was on a recorder in the car on the way there. And like, we're just,
that is dedication.
It was great. It was like, I don't know. It was something about it. Like, we got done and we got out of the car. I'm like, I don't know about you, but like, that was the most fun I've ever had in my life. Like, I just was like, oh, this is what I should be doing. Like, this is a lot of fun. And it kind of, I don't know. It's weird. The show then was so different to what we do now. Like, we're still having fun, still doing a lot of cool stuff. In a lot of ways, it's probably way better. But what we were doing then when there was nobody listening was like going through the book and acting stuff out and reading stuff and doing voices and like, I don't know, just like not ever since we stuck, because my original partner, he didn't want to do it anymore after a little bit. And it's never, I don't know, it's weird to do that with someone that I don't know online. I've never had someone that's like, hey, let's go through this book and like just break it down in that same exact way. So it's interesting to go back and hear those old. In some ways, those are like some of the best podcasts I ever did. Was like the first like few, like they were awesome.
Okay, now you can't get away without giving us some kind of voice. Like who was your favorite to voice?
Definitely the favorite was what they did with Sinister. It's probably some people would be offended, but I think he's a little bit. I think they made Sinister into like a sassy Sinister.
Oh,
so it was more of that guy. We were reading a lot of lines as him. It was silly shit. And I was doing Russian accents and all of this stuff, and you know what I mean. I don't know. I look back at it now.
Could you do a good rogue?
No, I'll just say no without even an attempt.
Oh.
Last night, what were we doing? We were talking about Grant Morrison. So you'd know a little bit better over there, like a Scottish accent. It's like, you telling me if I'm doing it way off, or is it like bullshit the way I'm doing it? Is that Scottish?
You actually sound probably better than I would. I'll be honest.
It's good.
I'm terrible at impressions or even accents. But that actually was better than I would imagine.
Robbie and I, we were going back and forth with our Grant Morrison impersonations last night on an episode. Robbie from Pop Culture Philosophers.
Oh yeah, we've heard of that guy.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
What was that for? Was that for your one that drops on Sunday?
Yep, be coming out on this Sunday, November something.
The same as this.
I thought I knew. I don't know why I thought I knew, but I don't.
Yeah, the 21st. Yeah, this will also be coming out on Sunday. So
nice, perfect.
What made you shift though from X-Men to just doing what you do now? You cover lots of stuff now. Like,
well, it's funny because like,
Marvel.
Yeah, one of the reasons. Well, first of all, I wasn't reading other comic books, and it's probably a combination of the X-Men books actually getting worse in quality, like dipping off. Like my passion wasn't there. Like I didn't want to do a whole episode dedicated to X-Force number 8. You know what I mean? Just some random, that's what we were doing at the time. And then the other thing was I started reading a lot more comics, And I'm like, oh, like a lot of these comics are significantly better than these other comics we're talking about.
I've been duped all this time.
but what's tricky now though, because it was easy, you know what I mean? The more niche your podcast is, the easier it is to get people in. But it's harder to stay passionate about one very niche subject. But now it's harder because I'm reading, as I said, like 15 books a week. And even people that are way into comic books, they're not reading a good chunk of that stuff. So it's kind of tricky to talk about cool stuff without it getting, you getting sick of it, but still having an audience there that is also following along.
Right.
No, I can say it like there's so many comics like Marvel, DC, Boom, Image, whatever, and even breaking it down like Vault Comics, Scale Comics, and like, Black Mask Comics. And let's be honest, the average person just knows Marvel and DC. And even when I get chatting to my friends, they're like, oh, you like all those weird comics that no one's ever heard of. Thanks.
Right. So that's what Why the Last Man was at one point, but those are a lot of the best comics. That's what I've found, at least. I tend to enjoy, and almost everybody that I talk to tends to enjoy the indie comics more than the big two, for sure.
Oh yeah. Like what I love actually about indie comics is a lot of the time, especially with collected, like this compendium of Why the Last Man here, it's 30 issues. And the next compendium's coming out, I think, fairly soon, and it's the other 30 issues, and that's it. A lot of the indies, what I love is the start, the middle, and the end.
Right.
I mean, I know Marvel.
It's not 100 years of history behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that with every time a creator changes, it's a new, in speech marks, jumping on point for that character, and you can pretty much normally walk in without that history.
Right.
But they will at some point reference things. Like, I mean, the whole of the Nick Spencer Spider-Man run was like his fanboy dream because he was a Spider-Man fan. And so much was referenced from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s and stuff like that. I mean, he explained it as he went along, but some people may not like that. They may think, oh shit, I wish I'd have read all of this. So,
right. Well, I mean, and that's kind of, imagine, I've said this a handful of times, but imagine like 50 years from now. Imagine 100 years from now, like how difficult it is going to be to catch up on this stuff, or even like, you know what I mean? It has gotten to where, in my experience, for the most part, you can jump on as someone that is fairly new to newer comics. You can jump on when a new creative team takes over, just like what you're saying, but you are missing a lot. Like, for instance, with the Dawn of X and all those new X-Men comics, I realized right away, it's like, oh, they don't really care how many of these people don't know what they're talking about. They're just gonna reference everything, and you know what I mean? It's hard for them to know when they're so in the game. They don't know what the people outside of it do and don't know. It seems to me, at least. But especially for the X line, it was a lot. I mean, it's such a complicated history with the X-Men, more so than most, like Daredevil. You could actually sit there and read everything Daredevil has ever come out, like, or all the Daredevil runs in a year or two. Like, good luck with the X-Men. There's so much,
Oh yeah, I'll be honest, I have been trying to back issue X-Men for the last sort of 6-12 months, because people may hear me say this a lot. I used to collect a lot of comics. I got married, bought a house, sold a lot of comics, and then in the last sort of 2 years, I decided actually the X-Men, Spider-Man 2, lots of comics I want to go back and get. And I remember when I jumped on was actually Grant Morrison's X-Men run, which I absolutely loved.
Me too.
And then I carried on reading it for years, but then I sold them all. I've been slowly trying to go back and collect them and stuff like that. But I realized how many I've missed. And how many different titles, like, Extraordinary X-Men and all the rest of it. I'm like, it's a complicated line of books, the X-Men. So at least Spider-Man is Amazing Spider-Man, like you say, and Daredevil is Daredevil and stuff. And I mean, you can probably go and pick up the Batmans, and they're probably easier than the X-Men run. So,
right. I think so.
Yeah, 100%. So recently you've made a jump from podcasting into YouTube as well. So like, what made you make that jump?
A big part of it, honestly, is old Rock and Rob and just the community that I kind of found. It's a little bit trickier. There's no podcast with a chat where there's people, like, what I mean, live chatting with a podcast. And I kind of realized like, oh, this is like where everyone's at talking comics. They're doing it for podcasts, and there's a lot of great comics podcasts, but there's not really the community. And really what fueled it was that I was looking for guests. Once I didn't have a partner, I did the show by myself for like 60 episodes.
Oh, wow.
And then I finally like, because I'm not like super tech savvy, and I was always a little bit intimidated by the idea of getting guests on and doing what we're doing right now. You know what I mean? It's easy once you figure it out, but it was a little intimidating at first. So that was a big part of it. It was Robbie, it was Justin from No Good Comics, and Gem Mint Collectibles, having them all on the show, Bueller and Bob from Everything Comics and Comics with Bueller. And pretty much after every show, they would be like, why don't you do this on YouTube too? And I was like, okay, you know what? I probably should be. And I'll just say it's went really well so far. Not super well, but it's went like it's a lot easier for episodes to kind of take off a little bit on YouTube. Like nothing goes viral in podcasts. You don't finish a podcast episode and then afterwards they offer you up the most recent Geeks Unleashed episode. But they might do that if you watch my video, they might offer yours up next. You can be discovered a little bit more easily on YouTube, it seems.
I think a lot of people quite like the sort of format of YouTube and being able to see people's faces. We had a few comments like that at the beginning. They were like, we had some comments go like when I was sort of touting feedback, a few people were like, so shame, like I think people that didn't understand podcasts as like, were saying it's a shame we can't see your faces. I was like,
right.
Well, yeah, it's a podcast. And then other people, when I was telling them about it, would be like, "Oh, are you guys on YouTube?" I'm like, "Well, the audio is." So
it's a lot easier to explain. Like, I know exactly what you're saying. You tell people I do a podcast. Depending on their age, they're going to ask you what that is. If they're over 40, there's a good chance they don't know what you're talking about. If you tell them YouTube and they get it,
Yeah. I think even whatever the age, people, 78-year-olds use YouTube because like everything's on YouTube. Like, you want to build a bed, go to YouTube, there'll be a video of it.
Right.
So
exactly.
I do that. Like, I'm like, I've just bought something from IKEA. YouTube, like, so.
Well, it's a new development in the world too, doesn't it feel like just over the past couple years? All of a sudden I just realized like, oh, I'm on YouTube all the time. It just kind of happened, you know what I mean? Where it became more of a place to go for your entertainment.
Yeah, I think like, so we've put up our last 3 episodes or 4 episodes on YouTube, like the video, just like, so this will go up. We haven't really done much in the way of live. I think we only did 1 video live this year, but maybe we'll eventually make that jump. But I'm hoping that putting the video and the audio up at the same time via podcasting and YouTubing will allow just people to find us in the way that they prefer. So a bit like you said,
giving them an option.
Yeah, right. And also like you say, chat, so in our most recent episode we did get a couple of comments on the bottom, which is quite nice. So, but like you said, you don't really get that on podcasting.
Right.
So,
well, I like it because you could be having a discussion and you'd be like, you know what, I'm not really sure. Was that this guy or was that guy? Hey, you guys down in the chat or in the comments, let me know. You could actually ask them, and you could do
because they're happy to correct you too.
Right.
Oh yeah. Like when you F up, like people are more than happy to tell you, like, you got that wrong. Cheers. I always love it if I post something like on Instagram or Facebook. Like, it doesn't happen often, but I get a message. Yeah, you made a typo. Thanks. Like,
I don't think I've ever made any kind of post on any of the formats that didn't have a typo in it. The worst when it comes to that. It's terrible.
Or some sort of grammar error. Like, I have to go back sometimes and amend my posts.
Dude, let me tell you a real quick horror story. I got in my car a couple of days ago and I was going to a comic shop actually, and I was like, you know what, I haven't looked on the podcast portion of this. Let me just click on the most recent episode, make sure it's going up, everything's fine. I click on it and I'm hearing me clearing my throat, talking to myself. I put up the unedited audio, bro.
Oh,
and
no.
Bro,
I've done that before.
Oh my God. I'm like tripping over words and I'm just like stopping and starting and saying stuff again. Cause that's what I'll do if I'm by myself. You know what I mean? If I mess something up, I'm like, I'll just say that again. But like, you hear me doing that. Oh my God, it was the most embarrassing thing I've ever experienced in my life. I rushed home. I deleted it, man.
And you go back up.
I haven't put it back up. It's up on YouTube. The good version's up there. I need to put it back up. But yeah, it was horrendous.
I have totally done that before. And like, I don't even know what I was doing because I usually do the audio editing. I uploaded everything, went on about my business. Mark starts texting me and he's like, hey, you uploaded the wrong version. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you uploaded the unedited version and you can hear us talking over the music and doing this and doing
great.
that.
I feel better. I feel better.
The reason why I did it is because at the beginning you can hear me yawning and going, oh, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Like whatever. Like I'm so tired to record or whatever it is. And I was like I try not to swear as much because I do swear. And I'm like, F's sake. I'm like I was like, of all the things, like,
I'm sorry.
It literally opened with me yawning. Yeah, and I was like, you can't have an episode open with someone yawning. So. That was
that's great.
That was a bad time.
Yeah, no, that happens to everyone for sure.
I will be double checking from here on out. That's for sure.
I think that was a nice segue into have you learned anything through podcasting on YouTube? And it doesn't have to be technology. Like learn anything about yourself, you know?
Oh, I mean, for sure.
Deep and meaningful now.
I think I think a lot of people like it makes you a better listener. Like, I know that I'm not a great listener, but I have to be a better listener because I'm inviting people on to talk to me. I better listen to what they're saying. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it definitely opens you up to that. And it also, in general, like being on the internet, it also, you're more thoughtful about what you're going to say. Like, you know what I mean? Like just, it makes you realize like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that because that might piss people off. Well, then why would I say that? Why would I even think that? You know what I mean? Just it makes you evaluate yourself in a way that you don't without it because of just, I don't know, because of public scrutiny. But you realize like, oh, okay, maybe that's not cool or this or that or whatever. You know, it makes you have a better read of the room, the world, the room.
Oh man, I wish more people could read a room. I really do. Right. I really, really, really do.
I think we've talked about that before. I think actually we had that conversation with Robbie on his channel where we were talking about a lot of comic book creators. Like I think they reach a certain level of fame and they decide they can tweet whatever they want. And it doesn't seem to be a filter. Now celebrities do it too. But I guess because we're in the pop culture sort of comic related world, I guess we pick up on that. And I think there's a lot of people that probably should maybe sit down and think, how will this be received? So
that is a very good question to ask before you start.
I understand. Like I actually went to the pub before I came out and I was saying how it's very easy. I was the guy I went to the pub with. I was like, it's very easy to react like without thinking. And a lot of people just go and react without thinking. That kind of is a big default for a lot of people. And I was saying to him, like, don't get me wrong, we've all been there, we've all reacted. But I said, I actually think the best thing to do sometimes is if someone really upsets you is, and I know this, I'm not saying hold it inside, but forever and a day. Right. But sometimes if someone does really upset you, actually, sometimes the best thing to do is to not show anything to them. Because my opinion is that probably bores them a hell of a lot more than you blowing up.
Right.
I mean, moan about it later to your friends and stuff, and have your rant. But I actually, when I realized that people get in a way more annoyed by you not showing them. So that and like you said though, the filter thing, I think it is again the perception. You know, obviously we have people that listen to us or watch us. You have to be careful what you say and respect people's thoughts and feelings as well. So
right. So like the younger version of me would have leaned on the side of like, oh, let's just say something shocking. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's who I was. But I didn't have like people listening that would have been shocked by it, other than friends of mine and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So,
well, there's an audience out there for that, but I don't know if you want that to be your audience.
It's not.
And what's his name? Is it Howard Stern, the shock DJ that you guys have?
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems like a terrible DJ, like, if I'm honest. So, but he's a shock DJ, so he kind of says what he wants, and there's people that love that. He's been on the air a long time. So.
Right. I don't need that.
No. Okay, so 2021, it's been a long year. There's been a lot that's come out, Verno. Is there anything that you've read or watched this year that you feel people should go pick up or watch?
I don't know. A TV show just popped in my head. I'll just say kind of my go-to. I'm going to be putting together like a best comic series of the year video sometime in the next month or so. And spoiler alert, I have a hard time thinking that it won't be The Many Deaths of Layla Starr by Ram V. It's
we need to read that.
Yeah,
it's an indie comic about life and death. It's the actual entity of death gets sent to Earth in human form, and she becomes mortal, and she's trying to stop this guy that's going to cure death. And it runs throughout this dude's life, and it's like you see life, or you see death learning about life from becoming mortal, and it's really deep, and it's just, they nailed it. There's very few series that end well. We were talking about earlier, that's one of the good things about indie comics, that they end. But even like TV shows, and like there's so many things that they rarely end well, and this just ended perfectly. It's just 5 issues, in and out, beautiful art, beautiful coloring, amazing writing. So yeah, The Many Deaths of Layla Starr out of Boom Studios, probably the best thing I read all year.
all right.
Yeah, no, that is something I'm keen to try and read before the year finishes. So we may. There's still about 3 or 4 weeks left. Maybe we will
more homework. I can already feel it coming.
It's a quick read. It's a quick in and out, like a robbery read for sure.
Just keep the car running.
I think because I picked up Swamp Thing because when I was on your show, and I really enjoyed it. I don't think I've read anything by Ram V before other than Swamp Thing, so I enjoyed his style of writing. He's definitely someone I would be interested in picking up more stuff for. So.
For sure. He's got a brand new one out right now out of Vault Studios called Radio Apocalypse. Issue number 1 just came out a couple days ago. It was Robbie's pick of the week. It was great. It was brilliant. We talk about it on this coming up episode of the Cerebros.
Yeah, I hadn't actually heard about that until I saw Robbie's rundown, actually. So I don't know what to do, whether to grab it or to wait like for a trade. Right. So there's too many books. That's the trouble. There's too many books. Like,
well, I'll just say it. I keep picking them up because it's kind of what I'm doing right now, but I don't know if it's what I'm going to be doing forever, because that's kind of what I've realized after being in the game for a couple of years now. You're probably better to trade wait for a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
The biggest reason to be picking up singles is if you're into the collecting of the comics and you want to get that one, you want to get Something's Killing the Children #1 and have it when it gets popular and expensive. Other than that, like, there's not too big of a reason, really. And this is coming from a guy that maybe shouldn't be saying this. There's not that big of a reason that you need to be reading new comics, like with the day they come out. The industry is almost like telling you not to by the way that they price them comparative to the trade.
Yeah, but the problem is if you wait too long, then books get canceled. And it's like, okay, but like I really am the type of person that I don't want to spread this over 6 months. Like, if it's a 6-issue run, I want to sit down and spend an hour and read all 6 issues at one time versus like, I wish they could come up with a different way to do what they do and do the distribution, because it is so hard for someone who's not so familiar with how all of that stuff works, like with the pre-ordering and with all of that. Like, it just, they make it so hard to be a casual comic reader.
Big time. Well, I'll tell you, one of the biggest flaws in the system is that you need to order, in order to get the second issue of something, you need to order it before the first issue comes out. If you want to guarantee it ahead of time. And it's like, why would you do that? Like, it's a flawed system that they have. And like, you know, as someone that's fairly new to it, it's glaring, like how bad it is. But I think trade waiting is really, a lot of times the people, the creative teams, the writers are writing for the trade anyway. Like, they don't do the classic, you know, you get your full story in this single issue with a little overarching narrative. Some people do it. They're doing it in Moon Knight right now, but still, most comics I've found it's definitely better to just wait for the trade. Honestly, it's fun to collect, so I get that too, and I enjoy it, but I don't know, financially I think I would enjoy the trades even better.
I prefer the trades just because it's easier to keep those like on a bookshelf versus having to put up with the floppies. Like, And like I said, it's a one-time commitment. Like I take an hour and I read everything, and if I like it, then I can go on to the next one. If I don't like it, then it was only an hour versus like 6 months of time, like trying to get this story read,
Exactly.
I agree. A personal thing. I don't know, like, why can't we do something where it's like, okay, you guys, you have a 6-month contract, like we're giving you 6 issues, we're not going to cancel before 6 issues, so that people have time to see, like, is this going to gain any traction after all 6 issues come out? Like, once we get this collected, is this the collected going to do better than the single issues did? Like, I just feel like there's a lot of different variables. Because nowadays, like, I get if we're doing just single issues, which we kind of got away from this year, but like when we were just doing single issues, like I would get all of those digital, because it's like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this.
Yeah, sure. when we first started our podcast, we were I think we were just finding our feet, a bit like you with the X-Men. We were kind of covering a bit of everything. And then we've kind of streamlined it a bit more now. And we have said on our weekly podcast, we're now not covering single issues, because like it's like picking up the first chapter of a book. Like, it doesn't give you a real taste for it. I'd rather do a whole episode where we just cover, like, I don't know, The Many Desolators start all 5 issues in one podcast.
Right,
like,
for sure.
So I mean, we did an episode a couple of weeks ago where we covered I mean, obviously we didn't go into the detail of every issue, but we discussed the only 20 issues of Something's Killing the Children. But it was so great that week. Me and Jasmine, we just read those, went into the episode, and it was great to be able to talk about it as a whole narrative structure rather than just reading the first issue. So,
it makes for a better conversation too, because you just have so much more to chew on.
Right. And I think that's the perfect example, because individual issues of Something's Killing the Children, when you're waiting a month for them and you get them, and it's an art heavy book, there's not a whole hell of a lot of dialogue, you can just blast right through them, and it can leave you a little bit unsatisfied. It's just like Gideon Falls was another brilliant run where the single issues sometimes would just be too quick. But that's what I'm saying. A lot of people are writing for the trade. I'd be curious to know, like, the amount of people that are waiting for the trade and the amount of people that are buying the singles. Like, what's greater? I really don't know. Maybe something I should ask Robbie, because he works at a comic shop.
I think they're going to have to get to what webtoons are doing, and a lot of the webtoon, like, no matter what kind of webtoon platform you're on, a lot of them do like weekly. So everything is released weekly. Now, some sites you pay a monthly fee, some sites you pay per episode, but like, they don't make you wait a month to get the next update. So even if the update is fairly short, you don't feel as bad, because it's like, well, I only have to wait a week and then I'll get the next update. Now, of course, I know that puts more pressure on the artist and that kind of thing. Right. But like, I think that format, and it could just be because, nowadays we're in this instant gratification kind of world. I really just think that the comics model, the way that it is now, is outdated, and it is unfriendly to casual people. Like, if I fall behind on a webtoon, like, I can literally sit on the couch on a Saturday and spend like a couple of hours catching up on 5 or 6 that I'm like a month or 2 behind on, because I can read like 4 episodes at one time.
Right. This is one like this. I love what they're doing right here. Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, 2 creators that they've paid their dues. They've made names for themselves, so now they can step outside of the system. They're writing these, and they come out. It's like 5 issues. They're $24 a piece, actually, which is pretty expensive, but they're nice quality. And they're coming out like every 4 months or so, where you're getting a whole story in this, and it's a series about this dude. I won't get into it, but I like that. It's a way that they're kind of like setting a path for other people. But then again, like I said, you kind of already have to have made a name for yourself for that to even be a viable option.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that I loved Firepower so much. When Firepower first came out, Firepower released in a trade immediately, and then it went into like the single issues, and it was just like, you actually have a chance to read something that is long enough to determine whether or not you actually want to keep going. So having read the trade of Firepower first definitely made me know, like, okay, this sucked. Like, I hate waiting on the monthlies, but like, I love this story so much that is one of the books that I actually do keep up with. Like,
right. That was unique. That was, and again, that's Robert Kirkman.
big name.
He's able to do stuff like that because he can. It's a huge part of what it is it takes so long to draw these things.
Yes.
That he probably had the money to set it up and pay. He could take the risk to have to pay that artist to do the whole book and then put it out.
Yeah. I know it's a luxury, right? But I think like we really need to take another look at this model because it like you kind of I want to be able to like recommend these kinds of things to people that are again casual readers because if people can pick up like a novel and read like a one-off novel and really enjoy it, like there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to like, oh, there's this comic that, you know, it was 6 issues, but it's all collected and just read this one book and you're good versus like, oh, by the way, once a month, every Wednesday, you got to go pick up this book from this comic shop, you know, like,
and if you're not there on time, it might be gone.
It's going to be gone. Yeah.
and by the way, the people at the comic shop, if you're not a normal person that comes there, they might look at you weird.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's just when you're not used to going to comic shops, it's an awkward, like intimidating thing. Like I'm over it now, but there was a long time when I was just getting going where, you know what I mean? I'm in my 30s, but I still felt awkward like going into this place. It's like, it's a weird environment.
I do know what you mean though, like a comic shop. Like I'll be honest, I hate being in a comic shop where there's the guy who's at the till who's just chatting the arse off the guy behind the till. And I'm like, look, man, I just want to buy my stuff and go. Like, but I don't mind chatting to the guy behind the till too.
Right.
But like, so like
if there's not a line behind you.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I'm respectful. So if I'll chat to him, but if I see other people are in the store, I will say, look, man, I'll let you serve the customers. Like, because I hate being that customer to stand there like, yeah, man, like when you're ready, like, you know, at some point I'd like to just buy and leave. No, I actually don't. So there is a store near me. But I don't buy my regular comics from them. I actually get mine delivered from another comic shop. And for a lot of the reasons that you said, like, you know how you said you have to pre-order issues 1 and 2 and stuff like that. The comic shop I order from, we've had them on here. What's his Bill from Ace Comics. So Ace Comics is a small chain in England. And yeah, Biff. Sorry, Biff. Yeah, Biff. And but what I like is if I order issue 1 of something and I don't like it, I don't need to carry on. Like they don't get a stick up their butt about ordering multiple issues in advance. So I'll just it's quite cool. They've got an online platform. I just go in and cancel off the next issue if I don't want it, and nothing's said. Like that's it. It's fine. So and they're pretty cool. They're pretty laid back. I sometimes exchange emails with them if I want something or whatever. And like for me, it works actually really well. And what I like is I'm sitting here, doorbell goes to go and get my comics. The only thing that is like if I'm bothered about reading them on a Wednesday, which I'm not, I don't get them Wednesday, but I'll get them Friday or Saturday. So which is absolutely fine for me. But I think we've grilled you enough, Verno, and it'd be good to talk about Y: The Last Man season 1. So I will hand over to Jasmine to kick things off.
All right. So Y: The Last Man season 1, FX on Hulu. It is based on Y: The Last Man by Brian K. Vaughan and Pia Guerra. It was developed for TV by Eliza Clark. It stars Ben Schnetzer. Ben Schnetzer. I'm going to go with that. He plays York. We've got Diane Lane as Jennifer, Olivia Thirlby as Hero. Ashley Romans is 355. Amber Tamblyn as Kimberly Cunningham. Marin Ireland as Nora. Diane Bang as Allison Mann. Elliot Fletcher as Sam. And Juliana Canfield as Beth.
The show consisted of 10 episodes, with the first debuting on the 13th of September and the final episode came out the 1st of November. I just want to say it's been in development hell, this series, for I don't know, 10 or 20 years. I can't remember how long the comic came out now, like 20 years
2002.
There's been, so there's been like talk of this coming out in films and TV forever and a day. And then out of nowhere, suddenly I think a trailer dropped and I was like, wow. I was like, finally, it's arrived. Well, it's arriving. And then do you know what? I went to put Y: The Last Man aside. I've seen TV distributors doing this a lot. They'll cancel something halfway through. And and they filmed all the episodes, but they just they put out an announcement that it's cancelled. I actually think that's out of order and disrespectful for the people that are involved in the show. Like, I think that you should at least wait for all the episodes to come out before any announcement like that comes out. Because, like, I remember me and Verno, we both did the same thing. We were watching it weekly. Then the cancellation came out, and we both stopped watching it, like, because it was like, well, what's the point? But I remember when me and Jasmine were having a conversation about should we cover this or not still, and I'm like, no, let's stick to our guns. We'd always planned to do an episode for Why the Last Man, so let's do it anyway. But I do think it is a nice thing that the studios do. I don't know whether their hand was forced, whether there was any sort of.
Well, the rumor is that the contracts were coming up, and Hulu could not get their finances in order to determine whether or not they wanted to pay extensions for the contracts. So Hulu let everything. They just let it all go.
Yeah, so it was cancelled not due to numbers, actually. I think so. Apparently, they're good numbers, but it was cancelled purely down to budgetary reasons. So,
which how? Like, I'm sure the helicopter crash was like your biggest set piece. Like,
right?
What budget are you running? Like,
there's a lot of people. That's one thing. There's
that is true.
of actors and actresses, and that monkey's all CG, so that's not cheap.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. Yeah, that. They didn't have a real monkey at all. So
I did not know that. I did not know that.
I just heard it recently and I was like, really?
Really? The monkey is all CGI.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't
Holy
have a real
shit. See, that's the whole freaking budget right there.
Right.
No, they didn't bother to get a real monkey. So no.
No need.
There's no real monkey. They should have got the monkey from Friends if he's still around. So. What's it?
So the basic like summary of the series. There are quite a few differences to me. I've only read the first 10 issues of Why the Last Man, but it feels really different. But summary of the series is we are in, all over. Actually, we are going through people's everyday lives, and then all of a sudden, literally, like, animals start dying. So it's like the whole first episode is basically like the lead up to this big event, right? So we see like dead rats, dead deer, dead dogs, like all kinds of like small dead animals, and they just kind of keep getting interspersed. And then eventually we get to the end of the episode and all men die. It's very, very Game of Thrones, Valar Morghulis. But so all the men die, and it's just like this big tragic thing. No one has any clue what's happening. No one can explain anything. Basically, all the world's economies are immediately just like shut down. Everything is in chaos, and we kind of don't get like the first days of the apocalypse that has befallen. And we kind of move ahead to a few weeks later where we got some governments back up and running, but we still got problems with, how do we house people? How do we keep people warm? How do we feed people? There's no power. We got to get power back online. So a lot of the series is kind of like, now that we're here, how do we take what we have left and make it work? But also, let me just tell you, man, the people in this series are really fucked up. Like the main characters are just a mess, all of them. Like, it's this very dysfunctional family. The sister kills a boyfriend who's not even really her boyfriend because he's married with a kid. Anyway, like the brother, you want to talk about a guy who doesn't have his shit together. Like, Yorick is a real mess in this one. And it's basically just like surviving this, because he survives, him and his monkey. So they are the only two men that we see, other than transgender characters, which I thought was a really interesting twist, because they don't really talk about, like, it's mentioned in, at least again in the first 10 issues of the series, it's mentioned people being transgender, but it is not really like a big focal point. So to actually have like transgender characters in the series, I thought that was a really interesting kind of take, because it gives an extra layer of like, you're a man. It's like, well, now, yes, but I was not, right? Like, so, but the series is kind of, it's political, it's heavy, it's really dark, And it just kind of gets progressively darker as we go on. We run into factions. It starts to feel very much like The Walking Dead. There is a lot of meandering. It's a lot of like, no, don't talk to those people. No, we can't let you into our group because we've already got everything situated. So it's very similar in the fact it just like this brings out the worst in humanity, even though it's only women left. So it's just kind of a really interesting take on the world has essentially ended. There are no men left. And when the women die out, like, then what happens? So it does ask a lot of questions. It does not answer any of the questions that this series raises. But that's basically it. It's shit hits the fan. We got to get the power back on. But at the same time, like, we're being undermined everywhere from everyone. So if I had to describe this series, like, it's chaos. It's a lot of chaos. It's a lot of, I don't really know who's in charge. Well, I think I'm in charge. Well, you shouldn't be in charge. Well, we should be in charge. And it's just like, who's in charge? Somebody needs to be in charge. I wish somebody would take the reins. So basically, kind of, it's messy. It's messy. And I think they're trying to tell a very human story, but I don't think it comes off that well. That's my summary.
Well, thank you for summarizing. And I was going to say, like, obviously we'll just go around the virtual room and sort of summarize what our thoughts are on season 1. So start with our guest, Verno. What's your summary or your thoughts on season 1?
I've got mixed thoughts. I think it's, in a lot of ways, it's really good in a lot of ways. And then it really just kind of loses me towards the end. It's a little longer than I think it needs to be. And there's a little more fluff, but for the most part, I enjoy the story. Obviously the premise is dope. It's a very interesting premise. The way the politics of the whole thing are handled are interesting. I think there's a lot of really, really good characters, really well-developed characters, a lot of really good acting. But for me, like, I don't watch like TV shows like this. If this wasn't like a big deal comic book, I wouldn't be watching it. I can't tell you the last television show that I watched that wasn't a Disney Plus thing. You know what I mean? That wasn't Star Wars or MCU. I just don't watch TV. So it's got a lot of those like Walking Dead tropes. Like you nailed it, Jazz. But the Walking Dead, if that had never come out, this would be cooler. The Walking Dead has kind of
ruined it for everything else.
Right. I mean, post-apocalyptic stories in general were huge for a long time. And I love them. Like, I'm really big into any post-apocalyptic thing. It's always, I've talked about this before. There's something interesting about removing civilization from the story where you don't have someone to call to get help. Like Lost was fun. Like, it's got a lot of the, Lost felt like that in a lot of ways, obviously. So I think like my problem with the series, kind of like the thing that I don't like is that we've got, like you said, we've got all our different stories going on. We're at the White House over here. We're with York in 355. Then we're with Hero and Sam. And that part of the story, although there's a lot of aspects of that I like, they spend a lot of time on that part of the story. And that's where it kind of loses me, even though I like it. I think it's interesting for sure, but it's a little too much time spent there. They leave York in 355 and the president and all that too often for too long for me. And the other thing, if I could just say, like, my complaint with the series, and I think this is television shows in general, is I don't buy the motivations for the characters to switch. Like, that's a TV show thing that you don't get in movies. You don't start a movie off with a completely different character. Like, they'll slowly change, like Tony Stark, perfect example, Iron Man 1, douchebag at the beginning. At the end, he's still a douchebag. He's just altered a little bit. In TV shows, you become the good guy, and then, we need a story to change, and now you're the good guy, or vice versa. And those are the things, like, throughout it that I don't buy. Also, the world falling apart so quickly. Like, the timetable is off. Like, people shouldn't be, I was gonna say cutting their tits off, but I guess they don't do that in the show. But like, they go to the extremes a little too quick for me to buy. I don't know if you guys felt the same way. That's pretty much my thoughts. Man. I enjoyed it. I didn't hate it for sure. I enjoyed quite a bit of it. It just, towards the end, it got a little bit like some eye rolly moments. Yeah,
I am. should let Jasmine go next. What's your summary on thoughts of season 1?
I like Verno said, it was too long. This was 10 episodes. This could have been 6.
Right.
I mean, there was so much that they could have cut out of this series. And one of my biggest beefs with this was it was slow. It was slow. And it was not like the good kind of slow where it's like we're building tension and things are happening and like I'm on the edge of my seat and I'm really excited to see what happens next. It was like we're walking down a dark hallway. Do we really need to be walking down a fucking dark hallway for 5 minutes? I don't think we do. Like the pacing is terrible in this series. By the time I got to the end of the second episode, I had texted Mark and I was like, oh my God, I got 8 more episodes to go. Like this is really going to be a slog, man. So the pacing immediately put me off with the series. I also, one of the things that they kind of didn't correct from the books is like they kind of flesh out Hero's story a bit, but it's still like the problem with this series is you have main characters and you know, of course we have villains, right? You're supposed to not like the villains. Like that's a sign of a good villain. Like when every time Kimberly was on screen, I was like, oh, I don't like you at all. I don't like you. But that's her job. Like she's
you're not supposed to like her.
Yeah, you're not supposed to like the villains, but you are supposed to like the main characters. And that was the problem with both Hero and Yorick. They were shitty people. I mean, Yorick proposing to his girlfriend when it's supposed to be her time to go off to college and do her her thing and her time to shine. And he's like, oh, this is the perfect moment to propose. And it's like, no, that is a terrible moment to propose. Like you're imposing on her shine. Like what the fuck is wrong with you?
Right.
He's a terrible character. He's whiny. He is entitled. It's just like, no matter what situation he's in, even when you take him away from, you know, roaming the streets of New York City, or you take him away from the Pentagon where he has finally reunited with his mother, like it doesn't matter where you put him, he's still a terrible character. And like I think it was the 3rd or 4th episode, it was 4th episode I think, where him and 355 are like camping and you know they're trying to get to Boston to get to Dr. Mann, and finally 355 is like, you entitled asshole, like you really just think that everything is about you and that, you know, and it's just like he was hard to like. Hero was even harder to like because it was like, I don't understand your motivations at all. Like you kill your boyfriend at the very beginning and then you have the gall to feel guilty about it. Like, no, you killed him. Like you guys were fighting and you killed him. And then like the way that she just kind of changes, the way she mistreats Sam, it's just like, I don't understand what you're doing here. Like, I just felt like the main characters that you're supposed to grow attached to, you can't get any connection to these people because they're just as bad as the villains. So a series like this can only work to me if there is that sort of like, now if you were blurring the lines to where it's like the good guys sometimes do bad things, that's a different kind of effect. But it's like, no, these good guys haven't done any redeeming anything. Like he like the only good thing Hero did was not kill her brother at the very end of the series. Like that was like your one good deed. I just couldn't get into the characters.
And you can make them likable without them being good. Like, just I'll use Tony Stark again. Like, I still like Tony Stark, but he was a douchebag, but he was likable.
Yes,
because it's Robert Downey Jr. with that charisma. Like, it's the reason why he makes so much money. Yeah. It's not the easiest thing to make an unlikable character still likable. Yeah. So it was a difficult task, but I agree 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at like Deadpool. Deadpool's a prick, but everybody loves Deadpool. Right. Like he's likable in spite of himself. But these characters, like it's just it's almost like there's no one to root for. Because I mean, you're pulling for the CGI monkey if that's the case, right? Like
right. I was gonna say I you know the Tony Stark comparison. I said that last week in Eternals. I forgot the name of the character, but the guy who was the Bollywood actor, Even though he was a jerk.
Kingo.
I loved him. I thought he was brilliant. He had the charisma. I mean, he was selfish, but I still loved it. I was like, he kind of, for me, like kind of brought everyone together initially. I know he went off, but initially his humor and kind of charm, for me, I felt was one of the ingredients that kind of brought those people together. I can see what you're saying about the characters. There's a lot of, in the TV show of Why the Last Man, there's a lot of people just fighting for their own selves. There's no united front. And so I know, like, you know, we'll do comparisons in a bit, but Yorick's TV self versus the comic self, there is obviously similarities, but the whole, you know, you mentioned the Beth engagement thing, the way it was done in the comic books, I mean, I still think it was weird how he did it in the comic, but I think it was more natural in the comics versus how it was done in the TV series. So
yes. I mean, it was completely forced, but it was forced from his selfish like point of view versus not.
I mean, so my summary of it is, I agree. I think this was too long. I think 10 episodes. I actually thought to myself, I would have been happy with 8. I mean, 6, you know, but 8 I think would have been a much better number. I think they could have definitely pruned a lot from this. I don't think we needed the flashbacks like of the character Roxanne, for instance, to get to see her getting grilled by her boss. I don't think we needed all of that stuff. I mean, I can see why they did it, because they wanted to give some sort of mystery about her, which eventually, is it Nora, used against her. But anyway, so I think the TV show was a bit too long. There was a lot I did like about it. They did pull a good chunks of it from the book, but they also made some huge liberties from the source material. Initially, I allowed it as I was watching it, because I thought, well, maybe they were discussing adapting it and what would fit, especially in the current climate. I think, like you said, in the comic, there was sort of mentions of transgender people in the book, but I don't think that, from memory, I don't think they ever showed it. But actually, in this book, set in 2021, where we are seeing that more, you know, they did use that well. So I think overall I liked the show, but there was a lot of problems, and I'll go through, you know, as we go through it, what the problems were. But
I would agree. I think it was just like, I like the message that you're trying to, I understand that you're trying to do an entire series on gender politics. And I can appreciate you trying to take that big chunk of something and make it into something that's palatable for people. But it gets so lost in everything else that this show was trying to do, that it's almost like I can't pick apart where you're trying to go with this story, because it just gets to the point where at some point, like, everybody is at everybody else's throat. And it's like, I don't even know who to throw my hat in with. Like, I mean, do I want to be on the side of Kimberly and her conservative people that think that they deserve these seats because their husbands died? Or am I with the president who thinks that, nope, the line of succession says this and I am in charge? Like, I don't know who to root for, because it's everything is so muddled. I feel like they bit off a really big chunk and they just could not swallow it.
So I think that's a good little segue then to who actually I'm interested to hear Jasmine's thing, but like, favorite, do you have a favorite character, Verno, in this tale?
I do.
Don't say the monkey. The monkey's not allowed to be used.
Oh, let me think of a new one then. No. Mine is the president. It's the mom for Diane Lane. Is that the right actress?
Yeah, Diane Lane.
She's incredible.
Love
She's
her.
gorgeous. She's like, what is she, in her 50s or 60s? She's still gorgeous. She's very presidential. Like, immediately you buy her as the president. And I think she's a fantastic actress. So those are some of my favorite bits in the series, especially early on. That gets wonky and weird as it goes, but I like the drama going on at the White House and the struggle for power. So she is, I think, the most, out of all of them, she's the most likable. And that's, I mean, look at who she is. She's a famous actress for a reason. She's got that famous actress charisma that you need to be likable in this type of a nasty story. But to me, she was definitely my favorite for sure.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever? I was to say, by the way, like with Diane Lane, she probably is the most experienced from my knowledge actress, actor and actress in this TV
She's
series.
Martha,
so,
for crying out loud.
Oh God! Oh God! What? How do you know that name?
Why did you say that name?
It was the most ridiculous plot twist in all of film creation. Anyway, Jasmine, other than the monkey, do you have a favorite?
Yeah, of course.
character?
355.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
She
Her
was my
too,
favorite
yeah.
because she was such an unknown. Like,
Yeah.
are you good? Are you bad? I don't know. I can't tell. You totally murdered those pilots. I don't give a shit what nobody else says. We all know that you killed those pilots.
She definitely
yeah,
killed those pilots.
I like 355 because 355 is an unknown quantity. Like, the people that she's trying to meet up with, like the Culper Ring, like, are they good? Are they bad? I don't know. So she kind of has the most mystery about her. But yeah, she's my favorite for sure.
I like 355, and we'll talk about the cliffhangers, but I feel like there was definitely more that was going to come out about her. But my favorite character was Nora Brady. I think I initially was like, why have they created this new character? Like, but it was a good twist actually that she wasn't a new character.
I feel like she was the most sympathetic character. Like, it was really easy to kind of understand all of her motivations.
Yeah,
she was the redhead.
Well, yeah, she was.
Yeah, the one at the end that killed Roxanne. So I'll be honest with you, I completely forgot the name. So I remembered the Amazons.
Oh yeah, Victoria was her name.
So so at the end, Nora kills Roxanne and says, "I'm Victoria," and I was like, "No way!" I was like, actually, like, and then I suddenly realized that I'd forgotten the name of the leader of the Amazons. I was like, actually, Victoria was the name of the leader of the Amazons, and like for the whole time I was just watching it, assuming Roxanne was from the comics, and I'd completely forgotten, even though we read the first 10 issues, like, I don't know, 6 weeks ago or something. I'd completely like lost track on who the leader of the Amazons was. And I was like, oh, that's a cool twist. And I mean, so obviously in the comics, Victoria dies at the end of issue 10, gets killed by Hero, I believe. So I was expecting something similar to that with that big confrontation, not for them all to go back to the swimming pool. And where Nora sort of stands up for herself, it wasn't unexpected. We've been seeing this from her like throughout the 10 episodes. So I know, like Verno, you said about how characters suddenly change. I think this, over the 10 episodes, Victoria, Nora, we got to see her journey throughout the 10 episodes, which I quite liked. I liked seeing her go from being the president's sort of aide, going to real, I don't know, like, just not being able to fend for herself, a real struggle, support, leaning on everybody. And then when she realized that she was going to be out in the gutter again, she suddenly was like, I've got to do something about this. I'm not leaving here because of my daughter and stuff like that. And she had sort of this moment where she managed to start to bring some of her skills from being back in the White House, but using them for herself rather than support somebody. And sort of bonding with Roxanne. But I think ultimately she had a plan to somehow take leadership, because she had all these rules when she put them to Roxanne. And when she was like losing it at Roxanne by the pool, I was like, that girl's gonna get it. Like, I was like, I know it. Like I thought they should stand up. And when she pulled the trigger and said, "Oh, my name is Victoria," I did think, okay, so they killed her off in the comics at issue 10. So they've obviously sat back and had a conversation about, actually, this would be a good villain to keep around. So I'm assuming that's why Roxanne probably got created to be the leader of the Amazons, to allow Victoria to become the leader, because they probably still wanted to have that big moment at the town with all the women from the prison. But so I assume that they still wanted to end with that, and therefore they were like, okay, well, let's I imagine in the writers' room they were kind of like, well, we kind of need a villain to die in the final episode, so I assume that's why Roxanne got created.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think she did a really good job. And to be honest, when I was watching it, I loved her in Sneaky Pete. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Sneaky Pete, but Marion is brilliant. So Sneaky Pete is a show that should never have been cancelled. It's brilliant. So
I think a character like what they did with Missy Pyle, who played Roxanne, I think the way that she just kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's just this one day she's there and she is in charge of this, like she's a literal cult leader. But like, it's almost like she doesn't matter as much as using her to further Nora's story. So we get to actually see a villain be born, like in the series, versus like having to just kind of accept that Roxanne is the bad guy because the story has told us that Roxanne is the bad guy. But instead we get the build up, the lead up to Nora becoming like this big bad. I think that's probably the only character arc in the story that's done well.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny because I didn't even realize, because I had forgot that Victoria was the name of the leader of the Amazons in the comics. I'm just now realizing that, excuse me, that she's going to be a villain going forward. I had thought maybe she was going to like take over the Amazons and, everything was going to be honky dory. So that it makes her even more interesting now to think like, oh yeah, this was a heck of an origin story. And I agree, Mark and Jasmine, that the motivations for her were done better. It felt more organic for her to be the character that she is at the end. That episode that we're talking about with Roxanne, that was the one for me that I was like, this is getting really bad.
I know, that's what I thought. Yeah.
It had potential to be great. Like, cause I do like stories that go back and forth, and like the way it was doing that, showing you her origin story, Roxanne's origin story. But there was two.
Need it though.
Right. No, I get that. There was two moments in that episode that I couldn't stand. It was when Sam and Hero split up. I was like, really? You're just gonna split up already? You guys are pretty tight. You guys just got there. I didn't buy that. And I'm already like this. I wrote that down. It's like bad. I didn't like that. Right after that, Nora, Victoria, she's got a lot of names, but Victoria's daughter is like, Mom, if you got to go, I'm staying.
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't buy that either. It's like, okay, now the kid is going to abandon her mom. They're just doing whatever they got to do to make the characters fit the plot. You know what I mean? And just skipping a lot of steps in between, I thought, for those two in particular.
Yeah.
No, I didn't like that bit with the mum and the daughter either. I thought, no, I'm not seeing that. Like, that mum has been there for the whole time. So I don't buy that her daughter's like, now I'm abandoning you, mum. If you go, I'm staying. Like, and I thought, I don't buy that some kid abandons their parents. Like, I mean, I know that there's difficult relationships in the real world, but we hadn't seen that between those two characters. So up until that point, that was definitely done to further the journey of Nora, though. So I think that was probably the motivation for Nora to suddenly step up. So we've kind of teased and gone through little bits here and there. I know there's quite a few things for Jasmine, but I'm going to ask the question: what worked? What didn't work? Like, Jasmine, go on, you kick us off. What worked?
Oh, no.
What didn't work?
Okay, what worked? The first episode was fantastic because it did not just drop us into the apocalypse. We got a lot of lead up. We got a lot of build up. We got to see kind of like little vignettes of what everyone was doing right before it happened, but it gave enough context to actually give us a reason to want to root for the characters who are left. So I thought that even though the pacing was still weird, I thought that the first episode was really great just because it did a really good job of laying so much groundwork to give us insight into all of these different women's personalities before everything hits the fan. So we kind of, and I think that if we didn't have that, then it would have been very odd to just kind of start. And it's like, well, there's a power dynamic, but we don't understand the power dynamic. And we don't know if anybody is out of character or if this is weird for someone. So laying the groundwork in the first episode was really nice. I think that works really well. What didn't work? A lot didn't work because we said before it was too long. They did not need 10 episodes to tell the story. Some of the characters were so flat, and it was just like, nope, don't like you. Like there's no reason for me to even entertain liking you. Like I can't remember her name. I want to say Valentine, but Valentine was the name of the woman in the comic. But the woman who was alive in Israel that is actually supposed to be the president.
Right.
Yeah, like she just came in and like she woke up from that coma and like by the end of it, yeah, Regina, thank you. And so like by the time she came in, I just want some more water. And I'm just like, oh no, I don't like her. Like, like
right.
I just feel like for some of the characters, they just threw us into this person. But like, again, even with villains, there has to be some kind of something. Like, for instance, with Kimberly, the way that they show she's got a husband and she's got 3 sons. So immediately, like, we know that she has lost a lot when all of this happens.
I like her.
Yeah, but she's a good villain. And it's really funny to me that Amber Tamblyn plays her, because Amber Tamblyn is so liberal.
Really?
So like to see her in that kind of role is kind of funny. But like she has enough personality, and she also has enough like she's written well enough as a brand new character that you can understand how what she says can be so insidious, and how she can weave her way in between the 2 factions that are within the Pentagon. Like she's done well. So I'll give them that. Like adding this Kimberly Cunningham character was a good fit, because it bridges because before in the comic, it's just like the wives of the dead senators just show up at the White House one day and they're like, nope, we're taking our husband's seats. And everybody else is like, that's not how the Constitution works. Like that's not going to happen. But the way that they did it in the series, it is far more like the calls coming from inside the house, where it's like, no, we have the inside track. She's the daughter of the former president. So it just like the way they kind of layered her in as the villain, I thought that was done really well. But yeah, no, most of the series to me was just flat, and it completely missed the mark in just about every other area.
Well, you Verno, what do you think worked versus what didn't work?
I agree with you, Jasmine. I liked her actually a lot, and most of what went on at the White House, I did like. I didn't like the performance when you brought in Yorick's girlfriend. She's good when she's Yorick's girlfriend and she's like being nice. Her as a terrorist, that didn't work for me.
What a stretch.
Right. So all that stuff, that worked pretty well. Also, the relationship between Yorick and 355 at certain times, especially, I think one of you might have mentioned it earlier, when they're on the bridge and they're arguing. I think she's a fantastic actress. So their chemistry and their relationship definitely worked, with him being a pain in the ass, her having a mission.
Yeah.
Like that worked. And then plus just, I think what works the best is the mystery, not only like the larger mystery of why did all the men die. Like that's very intriguing. You know, the series didn't have to do anything to make that intriguing. Brian K. Vaughan did all the heavy lifting there, but the mystery of what is up with 355 and can she be trusted? As I'm saying that, it's like, no, I trust her pretty wholeheartedly, but they did a pretty good job of making her, where she comes from and what the culprit is, like mysterious. I'm interested. Mark, you're the only one that knows. You've read the whole thing. You know who she is and all the answers. So don't tell me.
Yeah.
But that all worked pretty damn well for me. And we've discussed quite a bit what didn't work. And I'll just repeat what we've all said. It's the length of it. And I keep thinking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which has got mixed opinions. I liked it quite a bit, but they told a lot of story. They did a lot of character development, and that was 6 episodes that were like 42 minutes long each.
Yes.
Like they
did a lot in 42 minutes.
Right. You could have made all these episodes, like the Roxanne episode. If that was 40 minutes long or 43 minutes long or whatever, it would have been so much better. They just stretched it out way longer. Because I was actually like at the beginning of that episode, when they flashed back and they were going to show her beforehand, I was like, oh, this could be good. Because I didn't like the few episodes before that. I'm like, okay, this could be a good one. And then by the end of it, I'm like, this might be the worst one. You know what I mean? So
I agree with you. That Roxanne episode was actually probably the worst episode for me. I think in some ways I'm like, well, okay, now it's like we know her backstory. Okay, great, but I actually didn't care.
Yeah. It's irrelevant. Like her backstory is completely irrelevant. I mean,
right.
it was a time waster. That entire episode could have been cut.
Yeah. So I think what worked versus what didn't. I think the first episode worked really well. I actually loved that. The last episode, for the most part, I think was really good. It was a good finale. It was exciting.
I think so too.
It was good to have that confrontational moment. I think actually, we'll talk about cliffhanger, but I think they left enough stuff teased that I was interested in the second season. I think the 10 episodes, I think what it was is the length of this season and the pacing were very much off. So it's like they had a great premise, like you say, Brian K. Vaughan created the premise. They adapted it reasonably well. Like they did a good start and a good finish. And I think the first 5 episodes, I think, were really quite strong. And then sort of 6 all the way to 9 kind of just lulled. And they could have, I don't know, maybe they could have got 6 to 9 and edited them into 2 episodes or 1 episode or something like that. But one of the things I was thinking was, okay, I think they've kind of done reasonably well to have taken, this source material, which I hold in my hand here, into the TV series. And what I liked was, as a fan, I mean, Why the Last Man is literally one of my favorite comic books. Like it's one of the first indies I think I can ever remember reading. What I loved was actually that by the end of episode 10, that is actually issue 10 in the comics. So I thought, okay, so we've got 60 issues. What we're looking at roughly is about 6 seasons if they follow.
Oh yeah, Eliza Clark said she had 5 seasons planned out for this series.
So I think they did a very good enough job in terms of adaptation. I mean, there was what I feel like didn't work was, I mean, we're kind of segue into this now about TV series versus graphic novel. I'll kind of put it all into one here. So I didn't like the fact that we had Beth. It was unnecessary. I didn't like you said. I really, that was my one biggest beef, was I really wish Yorick had asked her to get married the way he did in the comics. It was brilliant. It was brilliant over the phone. It cuts out. Beth was in Australia, and we were going to, we pick up with Beth much later in the comic book series. Rather than having her in this, it means that now Beth's got this whole story that we never had in the comics, which we don't really need, and I don't really buy her as a terrorist either. And so I think they didn't have much in the way of the political stuff in the comics. Like, I mean, it was marginal,
but they resolved it. Like, they did have all of those women come to the White House.
Oh yeah,
but they resolved it early enough that it was kind of like, okay, now we're moving on to actual important shit, like making sure the power plants are turned back on.
No, definitely. And I think it was good to have more of that, because I think that was more realistic in the TV series. But equally, I got bored of it. And I got bored of all of the people in the White House. It was actually a lot of the White House that dragged it down. I did think having those confrontational things and the structure of the politics was good, but maybe what they could have done was just, I actually would have been happy if they'd have just done 1 episode just dedicated to the politics. And like, how sometimes they do these bottle episodes where they just have they focus on one character. I probably would have been happy if they'd have just done 1 episode. Like, I don't know, maybe we don't even see the politicians for the first 5 or 6 episodes. And then we just go to them and we don't even see Yorick and everyone. And they just have 1 episode, focus on Diane Lane's character and all the rest of them. And literally, they could even say, they could kind of do day 1, day 2, day 10, and by the end of that episode, that's it, we've done the politics. Because I think the politics slowed the show down. And for me, it wasn't as interesting. I think Diane Lane's an amazing actress, but I just think it slowed it down and it's unnecessary for me.
The way that they did the politics makes me want to ask, is this your way of saying, women are just as bad as men? Is that what the whole point of that was? I don't know why they dragged it out for that long.
Is that the whole point? I mean, that's interesting in itself, of the whole show. What are you saying, Brian K. Vaughan? And maybe it's something we can get into later or something, but what would it be if it was switched? What if all the women died? That would be interesting. What differences would take place because of that? You know what I mean?
Do you know Twilight by Stephanie, whatever her name. What's her name?
Yes, Meyer.
Yeah, Stephanie Meyer. And you know how she wrote Twilight from Bella's point of view, and then she released a book recently that was all Edward's point of view. What would be interesting is if Brian K. Vaughan revisited his concept and Why the Last Woman or something like, or no, it's not Why, is
Right.
it? It's,
No, it'd be X.
X, the last woman.
X the last,
yeah. Like I would love it if Brian K. Vaughan revisited his concept and spun it on its head and to show us his version of what would happen if all the women died. And we have one woman survives.
Right.
That would be
that gets a lot darker.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I can imagine that would be a lot darker.
The power would still be on though. It would be a different show. You know,
if
what I mean?
you want to see something like that, go back and watch Children of Men. Children of Men with Clive Owen and Chidwell Ejiofor. It's about
I've seen it. I love it.
How women can't get pregnant anymore, and how they find the one woman in the world that is pregnant.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Oh yeah, that was a brilliant film. Honestly, have you not seen that?
No.
It's good. It's really heavy. It's good though.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's set in 2027, so you still got time to catch up. Anyway, I think what versus the graphic novel. I think I genuinely just didn't like the Beth stuff.
There was no point.
Yeah, I didn't like that they didn't have the Israel troops in there.
Yes,
I was really disappointed by that. I was disappointed that they didn't sort of actually kind of bring them in.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, when are they going to bring them in? Like, they obviously saw a reason not to have it, but equally.
But with the 5-season plan, I can see why. Like you need to save something. But
yeah.
Okay, now I can appreciate a writer having a long-term plan. However, in this day and age, even if you have a 5-year plan, your first season plan still needs to be conclusive. Just in case, you need to be able to tell a compelling enough story in the first season that does two things: makes people want to see more, but also makes your network happy, right? And again, having a 5-year plan, but there being no indication except for 355 and York and Dr. Mann are on the road and they're driving with a map that the Culper ring left for them, and it's that's all you have. You're missing the crazy Russian that kept talking about the man in the sky. You have no Russian lady. We have no mention of the astronauts or the cosmonauts. We have no mention of the Israeli army and how they had their own sort of insidious plan to figure out what was going on with this whole thing. There's so much stuff that's introduced within the first 10 issues that leave really great clues and questions as to where the story is headed. And you don't have any of that in this first season. And I think that was a huge mistake, because now it does not feel like this is a global thing. They have condensed the story to the point by the end of the first season where this feels very contained and it feels very American. And it's okay, obviously this happened all over the world, but you don't feel that anymore, because there's no more mention of any of the other foreign powers. There's no more mention of any other governments. And it's just I feel like you left a lot on the table. And that could, again, it was canceled halfway through the season, but still, I feel like if you had left more nuggets, even if that Russian woman was just in passing, because in the books, 355 and York run into her and then nothing happens. They go their own separate ways, but it was just they had that one interaction in the book, to the point where literally as I'm reading several issues past this Russian woman, I keep thinking back to her, the fuck does she mean the man in the sky? What is that? What is she talking about? How high is this woman? But it planted a seed that really made me continue to think about this woman. And I just feel like you didn't give the audience enough to grasp onto to want to find out what else is going on.
Yeah. Do you know, for years when this was in development hell, I remember at one point they said this was going to be a movie. And I was like, no, I was like, there's so much to cover.
Yeah.
But actually watching this, I was like, do you know what? Like, not one movie, but maybe like
A trilogy.
I feel like a trilogy could have been too long, but maybe like two films, like two maybe long films, like say 2-hour films. That might have worked better for this. I think. Like now looking at it, I was very much on board with the TV series because I thought there's a lot to cover in these 60 issues, but maybe the trouble is in the hands of people that want to create 10 plus episodes per season.
But we got to get away from that. I mean, if we can move away from 22 episode seasons, we can definitely move away from, I don't have 10 episodes worth of story to tell. I have 6 episodes worth of story to tell. And if you're only telling 6 episodes, like you said, Verno, with Falcon and Winter Soldier, like there's no room for fluff. Like we don't need fluff episodes if we've only got 6 to 10, like, or even 8 episodes, you know, like 22, 23 episodes. There's plenty of room in there to have in your fillers, your throwaways that no one cares about except for like the mega fans. But like, just because you're streaming, it doesn't mean you have to stick to this 10 episode format. You can go shorter. And if you're telling a tighter story, which there was plenty of room for them to tighten up the story, like you can still tell something really compelling in only 6 episods.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I normally would move into structure, but we've kind of covered structure and the script and stuff like that. And I think we've kind of covered a lot of what we would have cut and changed. I was going to say, is there any particular favorite moments throughout the season though? Like to jump out at you, Verno, is there anything that's sort of your favorite?
Yes, I had I think I already mentioned it, but that one scene on the bridge, that was, I think, one of the best like performances with 2 characters, and it was showing like their flaws. I think 355, which I love that you guys keep calling it 355 because of Mark. I listened to your guys' episode that you did on the graphic novel. They call her 355 exclusively in the television show. I asked my buddy that who read it too. He's like 355. Like, what kind of British fuck would say 355? No. But that was good. That was probably one of my favorites, just because it was like both of their flaws were on display. 355 calling Yorick out for needing to man up, and then Yorick calling her out. I think the line he used was like, "You go full Rambo on all of your problems," which was really good. Then there was another one that was more subtle that I really liked, and it was excuse me. It was when we had the president's assistant who was great. Like, she's just like a really beautiful woman. By the way, I just liked her look. She gets pregnant, and then we have the conservative woman. Yeah, they go in and they're doing the sonogram or whatever it's called, ultrasound. And the nurse tearing up and apologizing for tearing up because there's just been so much death. Like that scene really worked for me, and I really enjoyed that. So that was just another one that worked good. And then the other one was with 355. She's got this shoelace. And she's showing how she can beat everyone's ass with the shoelace. And then like they're giving her a shoelace. You're gonna do that. And then all of a sudden, like a threat comes in the door, and Dr. Mann says, "Give her the shoelace." Like that was like one of the best jokes to me that really hit hard. It was like, that was funny. There were a lot of good moments, but those are a few that I really liked.
I did like that moment with Dr. Mann 355, and she was like, "Well, I feel much better now that you have a shoelace."
I think Dr. Mann's probably like the one of the most underused characters in this season.
They gave her a lot more personality in this series than she had in the comics.
But what I mean is they didn't do enough with her considering how important she is. So they could have done more of her. Maybe again they would have done as we went on. But did you have anything like favorite moments throughout season 1, Jasmine?
Actually, one of my favorite moments, just because to me it showed how like desolate and alone something like this could feel, was when Ampersand ran away from York. I think it was like the 2nd episode. And so he's like, he goes into the water in the subway station and like all of that stuff. But then eventually he gets dry clothes and goes back and sits at that station and literally just like is on the verge of falling apart when the monkey comes back. And I was like, okay. Like, I didn't enjoy any of the part with him and the cleaners being naked and almost getting shot, but like, just like the desperation that he felt to go back and sit in this flooded subway station, like hoping that his monkey would come back, and eventually he did. But like, I really thought that scene like was well done.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree with what I said earlier about the ultrasound thing. They kind of sort of put their differences aside for the ultrasound. Was it with is it Kimberly was there as well, wasn't she? Like, yeah, I liked that because she was like, look, don't, this kind of, I think she kind of said, let's put our differences aside, you know, let's just do this. And I thought that was quite nice. Like they said, you know, with all the death and stuff, I think that was a good moment, actually. I did like that. I really liked, and I did talk about earlier though, I did like the reunion of Yorick and Hero. As much as it wasn't the same from the comics, I did love that emotion between the two of them. And considering these two didn't get that much screen time together, it did feel like brother and sister sort of reunited. I think they did a good job, both the actors and both the actor and actress playing those roles, to see that emotion and that sort of bonding in that short period of time. But what I love though is in TV series and films, when you have a build up to something, you knew that these two are going to run into each other at some point, and to have it at such a huge moment. Is it I've forgotten her name, is it Sonia, the girl?
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. I'll be honest, her death was wasted. It was done quite badly, and I know she does get killed at that same time in the comics as well, but I kind of felt like how it was kind of just from someone across a field, it wasn't as dramatic as it was in the comics.
Oh yeah, because in the comics, you said earlier Hero, but it was actually Sonia who shot Victoria in the comics.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So but yeah, she got shot, but it was all dramatic. It was in front of everybody. This was in a field in the middle of nowhere. That was only my only sort of complaint, but I did love the sort of the bond between the two of them, seeing them build up to that thing. And my other favorite moment was, and I did, this is what I talked about earlier, was when Nora kills Roxanne. I was definitely rooting for that. Like, once I realized it was going to happen, I was like, yes, finally. I was like, someone is going to shut this woman up. Like, so, but everyone was like shocked. But then to see her kind of just take charge, and I was like, this is a cool part of the thing, like the story. I really loved it. I loved seeing Nora's growth, and to see in that moment where she takes Roxanne out. I thought that was a brilliant scene at the swimming pool. That's probably is my favorite scene. Like, not that I obviously would want that to happen in the real world, but like to see Nora becoming the queen of the Amazons, essentially, I thought was brilliant. So right, okay, so the cliffhanger leaves quite a lot of things outstanding. We get 355 gets some car with like magic goods, and Diane Lane's character is kidnapped and stuck in some room, and you know, it just, there's a lot of things outstanding. Obviously, we got potentially a new bunch of Amazons and stuff like that. I mean, did it leave you guys wanting to carry on if there was a potential season 2?
Not at all.
Nah, I mean, if another one came out, I would probably check it out. But no, it doesn't leave me. I mean, what it really makes me want to do is just go read the comics, to be honest with you, because that's where all the answers are. And I know that it's going to be handled well there. And I don't have to have some shitty guy playing Yorick.
Oh my
you know
God.
what I mean? That's kind of the biggest thing. Like, I hope now I can go read the book and not have that character, that interpretation of Yorick, influence the way I interpret the character in the comics. You know what I mean?
You won't. Like, and to me, the comic Yorick, he's still a smarmy bastard, but he's not whiny.
Right.
And the way that they portray him in the series, he's very whiny.
It's different because I always use Harry Potter as the example for this, because I've read those books before I watched the movies. And a novel, there's so much left up to the individual's interpretation. So I remember I read the books. I would like read a book, watch a movie, read the book, watch the movie, because they were all out by the time I was catching up. And I remember each time I would be like, that is not that character. Like, why is she acting like this? Then I would go back and read the books and be like, oh, okay, I get it. I get that interpretation, but now I'm stuck with that interpretation. It's a little bit different for a novel than it is a comic book.
Yeah.
I would definitely say it's worth carrying on with these books. Like, honestly, Why the Last Man, I was saying this on our book club where we had Jennifer from Comics Break Your Heart, I've always recommended Fables and Why the Last Man to people. I think they are good entry points into comics. And the good thing, I would say Why the Last Man is probably better because it's just 60 issues and that's it. You're done. And you've told a whole complete story. So I would actually love to hear like your opinions when you read these books and finish them, like, because it is a great story, honestly.
Well, the story made me want to keep going. After I finished issue 10, I was like, yeah, I really need to pick these up, even if I do like one a month or something, like to keep going with that. But watching the series, all I could think when it was over was, there ain't no Russian woman and there's nobody in the space station, then I'm not freaking interested.
I think what I'd be happy is if they rebooted this as a movie trilogy and keep 355, keep Diane Lane, keep Marin Ireland, who plays Nora, and maybe get rid of the rest of them. Oh, actually, no, Alison Mann, recast Yorick. I agree. Actually, no, do you know what? The actress who played Hero, I liked the actress. Maybe like fine tune the character a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the character itself of Hero that they did poorly.
Yeah,
but I don't mind the actress.
And I didn't, and that's the one thing I didn't like for Hero is that she killed her boyfriend rather than.
That was so unnecessary.
Like, I don't know why they created.
That's not how it is in the comics. Because I forget a lot.
No, in the comics they were just screwing around in the ambulance, and then the event happened, and he died. Else. Like, in the ambulance with her. So, like, I just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
It did add like something like an irredeemable quality to her. You know what I mean? You can't, that's not something you can necessarily be. She can't, it's weird because her name is Hero, but it's hard to then make her a hero. I don't know where her story goes.
Yeah.
But it would be hard to think of her as like an actual good guy in the story.
Well, see, like in the book, in the first 10 issues, her transition to the Amazons is so abrupt and sudden that even in the book, it feels way out of place. So I think they tried to give her a little bit more backstory in the series, but even that didn't work well, because it's like, why did we have to go through all of this? Like to still have a shitty character on the other side of it.
Right. You know what I thought they were going to do? And it would have made it make sense why they were spending so much time with the Amazons. I thought it was going to lead to all of the women cutting off one of their breasts.
Yo, man,
you know
that one scene where they like buried the girl in the dirt and put her in the bathtub. That whole time I was like, oh God, they're gonna cut off her. They're gonna cut off her boob in front of this crowd of people. Oh my God, like I was so tense, like watching that scene.
I literally kept thinking that was gonna happen. Honestly, the whole time. But
I was just like Sam in that scene. Like he leaned over to Hero and he was like, "This is so fucking weird," and I was like, "Yes, thank you for being the voice of reason." This is weird.
That was unnecessary, that whole thing. Like,
the only thing that I can see them keeping, or I can understand where they were going, was like the scene where the women are all like bathing, because I think in a world with no men, women would not be self-conscious, and that could be something that would actually happen.
Right.
But other than that, like all of their whole handling of the Amazons was just very poorly done.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll bring our review to a close of season 1, and I'll start with Jasmine. Really, how would you rate it out of 5?
Yeah, I got it 1.5.
Wow,
1.5.
Verno, where would you rate the show out of 5?
Oh, we can do a little better than that. I didn't think it was that bad. There was enough good performances, and the concept is out good enough. All the things that we've said, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. But then again, I don't watch much TV, so it's like, what am I comparing it to? I haven't watched a show like this since Lost. It's been years, so it's like it's better than what I see my fiance watching on The Walking Dead. I'll say that. You know what I mean?
I think there's a lot of Walking Dead similarities in this. Lost is one of the best TV shows ever made.
I think their flashbacks in this series were very similar to what they did in Lost.
Right.
Yeah. They kind of like each episode kind of focused on somebody. But I didn't actually feel their flashbacks were done well. Like I like the transitions. I loved with Lost, you get that weird music as you do the flashback, and then the weird music as you come back. With the flashbacks in this show, it's just like they just change the scene, and you're like, oh, it's a flashback. Like, and sometimes I was a bit thrown off. Like, but anyway,
Me too, especially with that Roxanne scene. It was hard to keep track of where you were at.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I wasn't too sure what was going on in the issue with the police car and stuff. And I was like, oh, why is she dressed as a policewoman? Oh, this is a flashback.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, right, okay. But I would go Verno. I'd give it a 3 out of 5. I think the production value is pretty high. I think actually most of the actors and actresses were strong. Like, they weren't weak in terms of their acting. And I just think I think where it struggled was they didn't adapt the source material well enough. The structure and the pacing was off, and they should have probably done this in somewhere between 6 to 8 episodes. You know, I think 8 may have worked, or maybe 8 45-minute episodes rather than
that's what
rather than 8 1-hour episodes. But I think there was a lot of that, and I also think they should have cut some of the more minor characters out of the White House that I wasn't interested in. I think there was a lot of characters in the White House that maybe needed to have their roles reduced. Sorry. To those actors and actresses, but but yeah, I think a 3 out of 5. And I would be keen to see a season 2, but I think if they brought it back, I think they should reduce it down to 6 episodes or something like that, and try and make it tighter. I think that's probably what they need to do. Is be tighter with it. So, but there we go. We can bring our season 1 review to a close, and just thank you for joining us, Verno, along the way. And in our next episode, though, it will be our Geeks Unleashed conversation, and we'll be speaking to writer and comic book creator Sean Pryor.
And don't forget, we did start a second podcast series where we tackle some of the most essential graphic novels of all time. Our 12th Late to the Party Book Club episode was Fables Volumes 1 and 2 that came out just this month. And we were joined by Jennifer from Comics Will Break Your Heart. Our next book club, we are revisiting Scott Pilgrim. So we're going to be taking a look at Scott Pilgrim Volume 2.
Ooh.
And you can follow Geeks Unleashed everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And Verno, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on the YouTubes. Look for the Cerebros. Type in comics just to make sure you find it. But Apple Podcast, Spotify. I'm on Instagram at Cerebros. I'm on Twitter at TCerebros. And yeah, man, look me up. We do cool things. We talk comics, do non-spoiler reviews every Wednesday for the new books coming out, and then get together with cool people like Rocket Robbie Billups is my guest this week, and we break down the comics in a little bit more in-depth kind of way.
Awesome. Again, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so
for
much.
having me. It's a ton of fun.
And you can get this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also, you can subscribe on YouTube. I don't know. Is it over here? Is the button over there? It's down there somewhere on the bottom. Yeah. So just click that little linky link there, and you'll know when we get updated.
Hit the bell. Hit the bell. And leave comments, likes, 5-star reviews all around. So anyway, thank you for listening, and see you next week.
Good journey.
Oh, good journey. Good journey again. Bye.